they stole $300 million. The FBI put a $5 million bounty on their leader's head. And his response? He threw the most extravagant wedding Moscow had ever seen while living openly, protected by the very government that should have arrested him. This is the story of Evil Corporation, the most audacious cybercrime family in history. A story of banking Trojans and billion-dollar heists. Of family loyalty and government betrayal. Of a criminal empire so powerful that even the combined might of American and British intelligence couldn't bring it down. And it all started with a single email. Before we dive in, let me set the stage. It's 2007. The iPhone has just been released. Facebook is barely 3 years old. And cybersecurity? It's practically the Wild West. Banks are moving money online faster than they can protect it. Most businesses think antivirus software is enough. Multi-factor authentication? Almost nobody uses it. This is the world that gave birth to one of the most devastating pieces of malware ever created. Zeus. Zeus was elegant in its simplicity. It arrived in your inbox disguised as something harmless. A shipping notification. A bank statement. An invoice from a company you might actually do business with. You click the attachment. Nothing seems to happen. But in the background, Zeus is already at work. It installs itself silently. It waits. And then it watches. Every time you log into your bank account, Zeus captures your username and password. Every time you enter your credit card details, Zeus records them. It even takes screenshots of your screen, just in case you're using a virtual keyboard to try and stay safe. Within months, Zeus had infected hundreds of thousands of computers worldwide. And the money started flowing. Not in thousands. In millions. But here's where our story really begins. Because Zeus wasn't the creation of some lone hacker in a basement. It was the foundation of something far more organized. Something that would eventually call itself Evil Corp. The mastermind behind this empire was a young Russian named Maksim Yakubets. Born in 1987 in Ukraine, Yakubets moved to Russia and quickly established himself in the Moscow cybercrime underground. He was smart. He was ambitious. And he had a vision that went far beyond simple hacking. Yakubets operated from Moscow cafes like the now infamous Kyant Cafe. Picture it. A normal-looking coffee shop where normal-looking people tap away on laptops. Except these people weren't checking social media or writing emails. They were draining bank accounts from across the globe. But Yakubets understood something that many cybercriminals didn't. He knew that the biggest vulnerability in any operation wasn't the technology. It was the people. Specifically, the people you had to trust with your money. So he made a decision that would define Evil Corp for years to come. He kept it in the family. His father, Viktor Yakubets, became the financial backbone of the operation. Viktor handled the money laundering, converting stolen funds into untraceable assets. Properties in Moscow. Luxury goods. Cryptocurrency long before most people had heard of Bitcoin. His brother, Artem, provided technical support. When law enforcement got too close to a particular piece of malware, Artem helped develop new variants. New disguises. New ways to slip past security systems. But the most important family connection? That came through marriage. Maksim Yakubets married the daughter of Eduard Bendersky. If that name doesn't mean anything to you, here's what you need to know. Bendersky was a former special officer with the FSB. That's Russia's Federal Security Service. The successor to the KGB. Having a former FSB officer as your father-in-law in Russia isn't just a family connection. It's protection. It's access. It's a signal to everyone in the criminal underworld that you have friends in very high places. Together, this family built something unprecedented. A cybercrime organization that operated like a legitimate business. They had departments. They had specializations. They had a hierarchy. And they had one unbreakable rule: never hack Russian targets. This was the golden rule of Russian cybercrime. Attack anyone you want. Americans. Europeans. Australians. Anyone. But never, ever attack Russians. Follow this rule, and the Russian government will look the other way. Break it, and you'll find yourself in a prison cell faster than you can clear your browser history. Evil Corp followed this rule religiously. And business was booming. By 2014, Zeus had evolved into something even more dangerous. Dridex. Think of Dridex as Zeus on steroids. It was faster, smarter, harder to detect. It could modify itself to avoid antivirus software. It could spread through networks, infecting every connected computer. And it was devastatingly effective at what it did. The victims started piling up. And these weren't just faceless corporations. These were real people. Real businesses. Real lives destroyed. Pennyco Oil, a company in Pennsylvania, woke up one morning to discover that $3.5 million had vanished from their accounts. Overnight. Gone. Transferred to accounts across Eastern Europe that emptied themselves within hours. A school district in Texas lost over $2 million. Money that was supposed to pay teachers. Money that was supposed to buy textbooks. Money that was supposed to educate children. Gone. And then there's the story that still haunts investigators to this day. A convent of Catholic nuns in rural America lost $24,000 to evil corporation. Think about that. These were women who had taken vows of poverty. Women who dedicated their lives to helping others. An evil corp stole from them without a second thought. No target was too big. No target was too small. If you had money in a bank account accessible from the internet, you were a potential victim. By some estimates, Evil Corp infected over 100,000 computers in more than 40 countries. The FBI calculated that by 2019, the group had stolen at least $100 million. The actual number? Probably much higher. Because most victims never report these crimes. The embarrassment is too great. The hope of recovery too small. But Evil Corp wasn't satisfied with 100 million. They wanted more. And they were about to get it. As Evil Corp grew larger and more ambitious, they started attracting attention from the people they least wanted watching them. The FBI had been tracking Zeus infections for years, but the trail always went cold at the Russian border. British intelligence was watching too. So were cybersecurity firms like Mandiant and CrowdStrike, who were documenting every new variant of Dridex that appeared in the wild. The net was closing in. And in December 2019, it finally caught something. The United States Department of Justice announced indictments against 17 members of Evil Corporation. The charges were staggering: computer fraud, wire fraud, bank fraud, conspiracy, the kind of charges that carry sentences of decades in federal prison. Maksim Yakubets was named as the leader. His photograph was plastered across FBI wanted posters around the world. And then came the bounty, $5 million for information leading to his capture. It was the largest reward ever offered for a cybercriminal. A signal that the United States was deadly serious about bringing him to justice. There was just one problem. Yakubets was in Russia. And Russia doesn't extradite its citizens. Ever. What happened next still baffles law enforcement officials to this day. You'd expect someone with a $5 million bounty on his head to disappear. To go underground. To at least try to keep a low profile. Maksim Yakubets threw a wedding. Not just any wedding. The kind of wedding that makes tabloids across Europe write articles about Russian excess. Custom Lamborghinis painted in camouflage. Cases of the finest French champagne. A guest list that read like a who's who of Moscow's elite. All while his face was on FBI wanted posters in 100 countries. The message was clear. Crystal clear. The United States could indict him. They could sanction him. They could offer $5 million for his head. And he would dance at his own wedding without a care in the world. Because Maksim Yakubets knew something that the FBI knew too, but couldn't admit publicly. Russia would never hand him over. Not for $5 million. Not for $50 million. Not for any amount of money. But here's where the story takes an even darker turn. After the 2019 indictments, cybersecurity researchers expected Evil Corp to go quiet. Maybe dissolve. Maybe rebrand. What they didn't expect was what actually happened. Evil Corp evolved. In 2017, even before the indictments, the group had started experimenting with a new type of attack, ransomware. Instead of quietly stealing credentials and draining accounts, ransomware was louder. More dramatic. And potentially far more profitable. Here's how it works. You receive an email. You click a link. And suddenly, every file on your computer is encrypted. Your documents, Your photos. Your financial records. Everything locked behind military-grade encryption. Then a message appears on your screen. Pay us in Bitcoin, and we'll give you the key. Don't pay, and your files are gone forever. Evil Corp's first major ransomware tool was called BitPaymer. It was followed by variants with names like Wasted Locker and Hades. Each one more sophisticated than the last. Each one designed to evade the specific sanctions that the US government had placed on Evil Corp. Because here's the problem with sanctioning cybercriminals. If a company pays ransom to a sanctioned entity, that company is breaking the law. So Evil Corp had to hide. They had to make it impossible for victims to know who they were really paying. In 2022, Mandiant discovered something that sent shockwaves through the cybersecurity community. Evil Corp hadn't just rebranded. They'd become affiliates of Lockbit. If you don't know Lockbit, let me explain. Lockbit was one of the most successful ransomware operations in history. They operated like a franchise. They built the ransomware tools and the infrastructure. Then they recruited affiliates, independent hackers who would use those tools to attack targets. The profits were split. Lockbit took a cut. The affiliates kept the rest. Evil Corp, operating under new code names, had become Lockbit affiliates. They were using someone else's brand to hide their true identity. Victims had no idea they were paying the same people that the US government had sanctioned years earlier. The damage escalated beyond anything seen before. Arizona Beverages, one of America's largest drink companies, was completely paralyzed. Their systems went dark. They couldn't process orders. They couldn't pay employees. The attack cost them millions upon millions of dollars in lost business. Hospital systems were hit. Imagine being a nurse trying to access patient records during an emergency only to find a ransom note instead. People could have died. Maybe some did. Schools. Courts. Manufacturing plants. Nothing was safe. By the time investigators tallied the numbers, Evil Corp and its affiliates had stolen or extorted over $300 million. $300 million. From the same group that started with simple phishing emails a decade earlier. But the most disturbing revelation was still to come. In 2024, the United Kingdom's National Crime Agency released a report that confirmed what intelligence analysts had suspected for years. Evil Corp wasn't just a criminal organization operating with Russian government tolerance. They were actively working for Russian intelligence. According to the NCA, Maksim Yakubets had been given assignments by the FSB. Not requests. Assignments. The kind of assignments you don't refuse when your father-in-law is a former FSB officer and your freedom depends on government protection. These assignments reportedly included intelligence gathering against NATO member countries. Let that sink in. The same organization that was stealing money from American schools and British hospitals was also conducting espionage against Western governments. This wasn't just crime anymore. This was state-sponsored warfare. And Evil Corp was on the front lines. The line between Russian cybercriminal and Russian intelligence asset had completely disappeared. Maybe it was never there to begin with. So where does that leave us today? The sanctions remain in place. The indictments still stand. The $5 million bounty still waits, unclaimed, for anyone brave or foolish enough to try and collect it. And Maksim Yakubets? He still lives in Moscow. Still drives his custom Lamborghinis through city streets. Still enjoys the protection of a government that values his skills more than it fears international pressure. His father still launders money. His brother still provides technical support. His father-in-law still offers the kind of protection that money can't buy. Evil Corp still operates. Diminished, perhaps. More careful, certainly. The Lockbit infrastructure was eventually disrupted by law enforcement in 2024. But the people behind Evil Corp remain free. Their expertise remains intact. Their government protection remains solid. What have we learned from all of this? First, the obvious lesson. Cybersecurity is no longer optional. Multi-factor authentication. Zero-trust architecture. Regular backups stored offline. These aren't luxuries anymore. They're survival requirements in a world where organizations like Evil Corp exist. But there's a darker lesson here too. One that keeps cybersecurity professionals awake at night. When a nation-state protects its cybercriminals, traditional law enforcement becomes almost impossible. You can indict them. You can sanction them. You can offer millions for their capture. But as long as they stay within borders that protect them, they remain untouchable. The hackers know this. The governments know this. And now you know it too. Evil Corp represents something new and terrifying in the world of cybercrime. A merger of criminal enterprise and state power. A family business backed by intelligence agencies. A threat that we still don't fully know how to counter. The next time you get an email with an attachment you weren't expecting, remember this story. Remember that behind that attachment might be an organization with decades of experience. An organization protected by one of the most powerful governments on Earth. An organization that stole from nuns and would steal from you without a moment's hesitation. And that $5 million bounty? It's still waiting. Still unclaimed. Because some criminals know exactly which borders keep them safe. If this story taught you something, hit that subscribe button. Because the world of cybercrime is evolving every day, and knowledge is your first line of defense. Until next time, stay safe out there.